Hey everyone, it's me, the Last Prime. It's been a long time since you have heard from me, but today we're going to do a very different video, as you can see in the title.
I
That
was holding
should
it up the
be
entire time. I was trying not to interrupt you.
that should be it. But today I have someone with me that's going to help me throughout the video, and we're going to talk about a few things regarding of sadly what happened to the movie as we know of that didn't do so great called Transformers The Last Night. And we'll be diving into that after our introductions and the channel update that I'll be giving on after that. And then we'll move on, talk about everything that what happened with The Last Night, what was removed, and what was cut, and who was responsible of it. Other than that, further ado, I'm gonna go ahead and give the floor to my co-host.
okay, well, howdy, y'all, cowboys. It's me, a boy you don't know. I'm Coffeeholic, although I'm probably well known for my channel Coffeeholic Alien. On that channel, I usually do a lot of fan dubs and voice impressions. I'm mostly known for voicing G1 Soundwave and G1 Starscream. Although sometimes I do meme videos as well, I guess. Probably my most popular video is I Kid You Not Batman. That's like sitting at about 30,000 views. Please don't go watch it, it's really cringe. And yeah, that's me. Bye.
So, Coffee, do you want to talk about why you decided to partake in this video and your personal reasoning why you wanted to be part of this, given of your opinion on The Last Night? Like, most people are against this movie and wouldn't even dare to defend it. What made you feel like I'm gonna help out with this person?
Oh, because you're holding me at gunpoint. Please, someone help me. I'm in his basement. He won't let me out.
uh,
Okay. So the actual reason is, even though I'm personally not a fan of the Bayverse, after hearing all these stories of how Paramount basically wronged Michael Bay for The Last Night, it's really quite shitty, honestly. Excuse my language. I'm sure if you don't want me to swear, you just bleep it out. But like, it's really bad. Don't laugh at me, dude. Wow, you're not
no, I
professional
was
at all.
laughing what you said about the beep, but
The
yeah,
beep beep
continue.
beep.
Mhm.
Yes. So we'll get into what like the reason behind how Paramount screwed over Bay. So stay tuned for that, I guess. But yeah, there's a lot of reasonings and a lot of things they did to this movie without really Bay's consent whatsoever.
Yeah, it's really disheartening what happened, and I guess before we officially start, there is some clarification that has to be talked about Dark and the Moon, and I want to go ahead and mention this before we dive into my channel update. So, Coffee brought to my attention originally what I was told why Bay decided to continue on with After Dark and the Moon was originally the intent was Paramount wanted Bay to make more films because money, but there is a very warming and wholesome story to what Bay has personally said to himself or said to the people, or it was possibly an interview. I didn't get clarification where it was from, but to my understanding, Coffee basically talked about Bay went to some park where they held that big Transformers ride, and he saw how many people?
Like it was like an entire line built up like at the to like at the beginning of the entrance all the way to the ride. It was a giant line. And once Michael Bay saw that how many people were still passionate and interested in Transformers, he realized he wasn't ready to give the franchise up yet, and so he returned for 4 and 5.
Right, right. So a while Paramount was partly the reason why Bay decided to do that, come back. But it's really warm heartening to know that Bay didn't just come back for the money. He came back for the franchise, and it really shows how much he cared. And it's really upsetting how people treat Bay and degraded him and disregarded of everything he was trying to build and accomplish. It's, like I said, really disheartening. It hurts to see how he's been treated. Um, but aside of that, we'll talk more about this once after I talk about my channel update. So I'm gonna go ahead and tell you guys what's up. So I've been really quiet for a long time, and I apologize so much about that. There has been so much going on behind the scenes. Now, for those who watch my channel, I do fan dubs. I'm doing not just Transformers anymore. Now, while you guys have seen, I'm gonna be redubbing Transformers Siege, and eventually I'm gonna be doing Earthrise. But there's gonna be more fiends I'm gonna be redubbing. We're gonna start redubbing stuff for Mortal Kombat 11, probably the other Mortal Kombat games, possibly the Batman Arkham games, just kind of like, have some variety on my channel. And Star Wars is gonna be on my channel, from the Clone Wars series, from the movies, and so on. So I'm gonna really expand with fandub so people have more to watch rather than just Transformers. As rescores go, I think I'm just gonna stick of doing Transformers Prime, because that seems to be what all you viewers who are subscribed to me are interested in. And if you guys have any opinions or any recommendations what you would like to see rescored, not music wise, but like footage wise, like from a cartoon or a movie or even an anime, just let me know and I'll do my best to do my part, and I'll try to give you guys what you want. But aside of that, I would like to bring up something that it's still in heavy works. It's called Transformers Dark Beginnings. And what that is, it's a series I'm working on, a fan series, and fair use. It's a series I'm working on that's gonna be rated 17 mature, and it's gonna basically, in short, I'm gonna explain and give the viewers a chance to experience the golden era. Because in the main genre of Transformers, they don't really talk about the golden age. They kind of tap into it, but they don't really go in detail about it. So yeah, the series is being built on, and it basically
Okay.
is
Oh,
going to
fuck.
expand on the golden age. And we're taking a lot of variations of inspirations from comics, from IDW, the old one, and so on. So there's gonna be so much to offer to this Transformers series, and it's still in heavy works. We're working on the art, designs, and everything. And if you are interested to partake in the series, or you just want to see how it's going, and if you're a fan of it, or you just want to, just have an interest, I do have a server for it, and I will be probably making an official server for the fan series in time. Regardless, I hope that you guys have some interest, and it's one of the biggest reveals. There will be a teaser for it very soon to kind of show off what the series is going to be, so stay tuned for that. But aside of that, we're going to go ahead and get started on what the video represents. So the first thing we're going to talk about in regards of the last night is, give me a second, I have to X out something that's kind of blocking my view. Sorry about that, guys. So let me scroll up here, kind of give you guys an idea. Okay, so we're going to talk about why and what was cut from the last night. So, first thing we're gonna mention is one of the biggest things that has been shown about the last night, and it's kind of shitty what has happened to one of my friends who are on YouTube. His name, I'm pretty sure he got the video to stay online, but his name is Vin Rolanzo. Now, don't quote me on this. I'm pretty sure this is what happened, so this is just by memory, but apparently he got the concept art of Optimus and Megatron from the TF5 the last night where they're at the Coliseum, right? And it shows Megatron and Optimus in like in a fight sequence, and there's like stuff behind them, and they're clearly at the Coliseum. Megatron has like a mix mash of like a cleaner design of his last night design mixed with his '07 design, and Optimus just looks like his night design. So, but someone on YouTube animated this to a certain extent to give some closure for fans who wanted to see this in the actual cut. So unfortunately, when this YouTuber animated it at the best of his ability and everything on YouTube, eventually, this is shortly after the movie came out, and whenever the concept art was released, it was animated from one of the YouTubers to the best of his ability. And what happens then is, and it is really kind of sad that Paramount did this. Paramount tried to shut down that video because, and this is what we talked about earlier, what Coffee mentioned, Paramount did some very icky stuff against Bay and his team, and basically did things they weren't supposed to and really ruined the last night. So yeah, that's concept one about Optimus and Megatron there. So the next piece is there's this jet, right? There's this jet in London, you know, taking fire and is being attacked by these drone ships and whatnot. So apparently,
Sorry, hang on. Are you talking about the Megatron being fired upon by the other ships concept art?
yeah.
That's in Paris, not London. That's the Eiffel Tower.
Well, the point is about this. So Megatron, that's not actually Megatron. To point out, that is one of the knights. So the knights weren't supposed to be a dragon. So this is what we're talking about, and this is one of the really disgusting parts about Paramount. So the movie was going to be 3 hours long. It was originally going to be that long, and you guys were going to see what you seen in the trailers. It was going to be in the movie, you know, out of theaters. So what happened? What caused the last night to fall apart? Paramount so Paramount did some dumb stunt to Michael Bay and his team, even Steve Jablonsky. So what we're going to discuss first before we go to Bay is we're going to talk about Steve. And Steve said himself in one of his interviews, and you can find it yourself, we'll link the video in the description and even in the comment section. But what happens is Steve Jablonsky talks about the last night in one of his interviews, and he basically describes that, well, the last night was cut. And if you've seen the movie, you could definitely see it. And one of the most popular scenes I bring up all the time about being cut was where Megatron talks about, "Do I know you, human?"
Do I know you, human? I want my crew.
Give me names!
Mohawk.
Mohawk.
I've been video editing for a long time, and I could recognize there was some terrible video editing going on. So unfortunately, what Paramount does to Bay and his team, and Coffee talked about without his consent, or, you know, basically letting him know what they were going to do. Paramount decided at the last minute, at the last second, right before the movie was coming out, like 3 or 4 weeks before the movie comes out, they decided to recut it, to cut it up, and Steve Jablonsky had to rescore the movie so it would sync up with the movie. And that's one of the most disheartening, disappointing parts about the last night there. And Coffee, is there anything you would like to add to the conversation about how you personally feel about this, what you have learned, what Paramount, what the scummy stuff they did, not only to Bay, but to everyone that was part of this uh project.
Yeah, I agree with you a lot, especially with the screwing over everyone in this project. Like it wasn't just Michael Bay who was screwed over. It wasn't just Steve. It was the entire crew behind this movie, like animators, like CGI artists, concept artists. By cutting out all this content, finished scenes, they're really screwing over the hard work that this team put towards this movie. Say whatever you want about the Transformers movie, right? Like, it doesn't matter if you think they're awful or decent or really good. You cannot deny that the team put a lot of effort into it, especially the effects and music. You cannot deny that. They're fantastic. Doesn't matter what.
Oh yeah, definitely. The CGI was so much
Like,
better in the last night compared to
yeah,
Age of
and
Extinction.
like
I'll say
they
that
do a
much.
great job. Like 2007's Transformers, that CGI still holds up today. That film still looks fantastic today.
Oh yeah, definitely. It looks really
Like-
realistic.
Like a movie that came out in 2007 is 2021 now. We've made huge leaps in CGI since then, and that movie still looks fantastic.
Absolutely.
So say whatever you want about the story, the scripts, etc., etc. You cannot deny the effort that the team has put into these movies. And by Paramount just taking all this content out of this movie without the consent of Bay or the artists involved, it's really taking them over. Like, how would you feel if you spent months upon months working on this one scene? For example, the Cybertron Coliseum, having to like use CGI skills to put like all these tiny mechanical details for the Cybertron Coliseum, and animate Megatron and Optimus actually fighting in this Coliseum. How would you feel that months and months of work was just simply cut out of the movie and never addressed?
It
Would you
it,
would
it,
you feel you were dicked over?
it would it would upset me. I mean, it's like even for voice acting, I I could really hear it in the last night, especially. Bumblebee is another story that everyone knows, but I will say this much. When you listen to Colin in the last night, you could tell the acting in the cut version in the one they released. You could hear the acting, it was still good, but you could definitely hear Colin was upset.
Exactly. And I think one of the main complaints about the last night is the editing of the video of the movie, because like one of the like if you watch the movie, sometimes it feels like scenes just come out of nowhere, and like some scenes just feel pointless altogether.
Like the one I mentioned about Megatron and meeting up with those, I guess, the government.
Yeah, and I think another good example would be that phone scene where I don't remember, I haven't seen the movie in a while, but it's like the two characters talking on the phone, and really all the scene ends up doing is just showing the guy tearing out a piece of paper and looking at a table. It kind of feels like that scene could have been shorter, and it kind of just seemed, most of the scene kind of felt pointless.
Yeah, and
Like really, it could have just been like the man looking through some books and discovering everything. Like I don't understand what the phone call was for, what the phone call ended up leading to. Like, I know that guy appeared in like the other Transformers movies, like the Sector 7 agent. But what did he really have a point for being in this movie? Like, what did he contribute to the plot? I feel like you could just cut him out of the movie and nothing would have changed.
Yeah, I really feel like we may not ever know what the original cut was like. Like, it might have been so different. Like, the way they were interpreting it with the trailers, especially with the very first trailer soundtrack they used, do you realize it really felt like this movie was going to be more darker than Dark in the Moon? Like, this is like the end game. This is the final battle. Like, it really felt like this is the fate of the Earth. Like, this is going to be a big deal. And when you watch the movie, they make it really childish and very kid friendly kind of. And I really don't feel like that was Bay's formula into the movie. Like, when you watch his other movies before The Last Night, like Age of Extinction was really dark.
I'd also say that another character that in the last night that you could just cut out and will not change anything about the movie is Isabella and her little R2D2 robot. I personally feel like he didn't do anything in the movie other than just standing there and saying one-liners. Like, I'm gonna stand here and I'm gonna fight. It's like, okay, are you gonna fight at all in the finale? Oh no? Okay.
Yeah, she was pretty useless. I personally didn't like her. Squeaks kind of contributed, but not by much. He just destroyed like a sentry and whatnot. Yeah.
Squeaks just kind of felt like a R2D2 BB-8 knockoff.
Yeah.
You know, like a little cute robot companion.
Yeah, and
Isabella was kind of like a Ray. Like she was like a scavenger type of thing, where she was like living in like the no man's land of.
Yeah, I don't know. I really feel like what we saw in this final version, it doesn't really feel like what we were expecting. I felt like after realizing what was cut out of the movie, it really, really pissed me off. And there was someone on YouTube that left a comment on one of my old videos, actually brought some pointers what was removed from the film, but I have to find it real quick. So if you have to excuse me, so Coffee, would you mind just taking over until I find this?
Yeah, sure. So there's a lot of other things that were also cut out of the movie. For example, did you find it weird that Megatron just randomly blew fire out of his fusion cannon?
You let the talisman get away! We must have it.
It just felt kind of there, right? Like it didn't really serve a purpose. Well, in the original version of the movie, Megatron was supposed to transform into a dragon, and he was supposed to breathe fire out of his mouth. And that is why, like, Megatron's new robot mode in The Last Night looks very animalistic. Like, he has, like, some horns for his, like, battle mask and whatnot. It's not just there for, like, cosmetic purposes. In the movie, he was supposed to transform into an actual fire-breathing dragon. And then it was just changed so he transformed into a jet instead. So that is why, in some shots, he just shot fire out of his fusion cannon, because I don't doubt that in the original scene, he was supposed to breathe fire out of his mouth, but they just placed the fire asset inside the cannon instead, because they decided to change him to a jet. But yeah, there's also a lot of other scenes that were cut out as well. Like, we've already discussed, like, the Colosseum, and, like, the giant fight that was supposed to happen in there.
There was other things cut out, like a while on until I find what I'm looking for. But another thing that was cut out, and it's really disappointing. Optimus and Megatron were supposed to fight a couple of times in this movie. They were supposed to fight in Michigan. They were supposed to have a couple of encounters before the big finale that we see in, what we saw in the movie.
That's another thing that I would say, that in The Last Night, like the one we got in theaters, Megatron was kind of a disappointment. Like, throughout the movie, it kind of felt like they were, like, building up to him. Like, he's getting a crew, which was being shown how much of a badass he was. And when he finally fought Optimus, it was just a few pew-pews, and then he was just kicked out of the ship.
And
like,
it was really unfortunate.
It kind of felt anticlimactic. Like, there was supposed to be more there.
See, I'm going to bring this up. A lot of people shit on that scene. Well, I like to say this to all those G1 people out there. If you are a fan of Transformers, not just Bavers, but G1 and whatnot, you would know that that scene they do between Optimus and Megatron is a reference between Rodimus Prime and Galvatron from the Transformers original film. Where Rodimus is, yeah, he's like, this is the end of the road, Galvatron, and it throws him out. it's a reference to that. Dark in the Moon, I'll just bring this up. Dark in the Moon was based from a two-part special from Generation 1. Revenge of the Fallen's apparently based from something from Generation 1. So the Bay films take the idea and kind of like make it into their own thing. It's very similar what the Fate. I don't know if anyone is familiar with this, but there's this anime I watch called Fate. And they basically take their own risks and they're original. They take actual myths and legends and mythological things and make it into their own ideal. Like King Arthur is gender bended and is a female and actually has a very tragic backstory. Like they actually really write King Arthur very well. And that's what the Bayverse was initially doing. They took an original concept and kind of written it in their own way. Like in Dark in the Moon and the original thing in Generation 1, Optimus Prime was the one to bring Cybertron to Earth. But instead of having Optimus do it, they bring Sentinel Prime to introduce a brand new villain and an antagonist. And to be frank, I actually prefer Bay's version rather than the other one. So I think we all feel this way. I mean, while I know we're on the last night subject, but I just wanted to bring that up. Dark in the Moon, all these films are referenced to G1. Every one of them has a G1 reference. And if I remember correctly, The Last Night was the last second thing too. The name was. The movie was originally supposed to be called, as I remember, Transformers 5 Faces of Darkness, which is something we're going to show on the screen right now. There's a concept art where Optimus Prime doesn't meet Quintessa, but he meets the Quintessons, and they look very similar to their G1 counterparts, just more movie-esque.
I definitely would have preferred the Quintessons over Quintessa. It might be a personal thing, but I think the concept art and the artists did a really good job of making the Quintessons look like an actual threat that you could take seriously.
Yeah, exactly. He made them G1 influence, but it was very, Bay versus esque, but it still had that inspiration going on,
This might be a controversial take for like all those hardcore G1 fans out there, but I actually prefer this concept art design of the Quintessons than the original G1 look. Like the G1 look could look kind of silly and a bit more campy. This one, it looks enough like the G1 Quintessons where you can recognize them straight away, but they are actually menacing and look like a threat you can take seriously.
Yeah, exactly. It's really disappointing what we got. And it's sad that Paramount basically pulled a Disney. That's literally what they did. And we're both Star Wars fans, so we are aware of Rise of Skywalker. We are aware of that. We know what that is.
Yes. So for the people who are watching who don't know what happened with the Rise of Skywalker, so basically there were a lot of different endings for the Rise of Skywalker. The Rise of Skywalker was reshot a lot. There's a lot of speculation why it was reshot. It's either because Disney just didn't like what JJ thought of and wanted to change it themselves, or it was because of potential leaks. We don't know for sure which one it was, but we are pretty positive it's one of those two. So you might be wondering, what did they change? Well, we don't know each and separate ending that was changed, but for example, I do know one for sure. It was in the ending with Palpatine. Instead of what we got, where it was just a bunch of Force ghosts like saying, "You can do it, Rey, believe in yourself, you can do it, yay," the Force ghosts actually appeared, and we got to see actors returning. Like we would have saw Hayden Christensen as Anakin again. We would have saw Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan. We would have saw Samuel L. Jackson.
Yeah,
exactly. We would have seen all of these Force ghosts actually appear on screen and help Rey in defeating Palpatine. Instead of just them just saying, "You can do it, Rey," they would have actually appeared and would have actually helped out.
So, what we're trying to say is Rise of Skywalker had the same treatment what Michael Bay had, but I would say Rise of Skywalker had it a bit more extreme, where JJ had to continuously kept refilming, while Bay was done filming and they just kind of screwed him over with the editing part. Which I would admit, I feel like the editing was a lot better in Rise of Skywalker than what The Last Knight had. So I would say I feel like Bay kind of suffered a bit worse than JJ, I would say, at least in the editing industry.
But they also fucked over George Lucas, because in that original ending where like the Force Ghost appeared, George Lucas actually helped write that scene, and after then when they rewrote it and reshot it, they obviously knew that George Lucas probably would not have been happy that they shot and rewritten a scene he helped write.
Yeah.
So, unlike all the other Star Wars movies, The Rise of Skywalker, they didn't invite George Lucas to the premiere of that movie. Which is fucked. Like, the original creator of Star Wars that you invited to see The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi, when it comes to The Rise of Skywalker's premiere, they did not invite George Lucas.
Alright.
It shows, doesn't it?
I don't mean to interrupt, but I found what I was looking for, and this is going to explain everything about what was removed from The Last Knight, what happened, and well, we told you what happened. It's time to tell you what was removed in it. And I'm just gonna read off the comment and excuse the language. You'll hear some cursing. It's not gonna be too excessive, but there might be some cursing. But beside of all that, this is from a YouTuber named TF Collect 26. He left a comment on one of my videos and he made great pointers. And once you hear this, you're probably gonna be really upset. So he was in an argument with someone, but I'm gonna go ahead and read it off. As for all of you complaining about the human element in the movies, fun fact, there's always been a human element in the Transformers. Who is Spike, Harley, etc.? Didn't you G1 fanboys watch the unwatchable animated Transformers the movie, where they're not humans in that cartoon? Didn't Spike with Wiki have a transformable spacesuit in that movie? See, don't let me continue to discredit your lame-ass excuses. Your arguing points are about the same elements the cartoon had, but I guess y'all didn't notice. Oh, that is where they got Carly from in the cinematic universe Dark of the Moon. Did you even know that Hasbro wanted to incorporate every Transformers universe into one cohesive universe? I say this for those who claim that these movies didn't make sense or the timeline is wrong. Case in point, The Fallen isn't from G1, he's from IDW. Lockdown isn't from G1, he's from TF Animated. Headmasters, Cogman, and the list goes on to prove you idiots that Hasbro had more say and control of these movies than you like to believe, including their designs, which, as most of you say, Michael Bay designs, which he didn't draw up or design at all. DreamWorks design team designed them. And for you guys that say that TOK was the worst of all of them, I agree to a degree. It was the worst, but I know why. Do you? Let me explain. The Last Knight was to be 3 hours plus in length. Did you know that? This was after editing. Ironically, what did we talk about, Coffee? What happened right after the editing? What did Paramount do?
They fucked everything up.
Some asshole leaked the runtime. Paramount bigwigs feared that it would turn moviegoers off. So they made Michael Bay edited it again, losing nearly an hour worth of storytelling on the cutting room floor. So, what was cut? Here you guys go. So we didn't get the Orion Pax story. We didn't get Megatron Glider battle scenes. We didn't get Galvatron meets Quintessa. And a host of other material that would have made the movie more cohesive, which led to Michael Bay's departure. He got fed up with the politics and left Paramount Studios altogether. And then he mentions, now I had mentioned that the Baby B movie, that was just a fanboy movie that only they wanted and they were most in attendance. This is what Michael Bay's proof that it would not work, and it didn't. Nobody wanted it. Regardless how incohesive the last night was, it still grossed what the first movie made. So it was financially a failure, as people want you to believe. It actually cost less to produce than the first movie. Still, people wanted the next film more than the Baby B movie. Now, I'm gonna agree with this guy because I'm gonna point out something that that I'm actually part of, and I'm credibly allowed to say this. I am in a fan project, a fan film called Transformers: Rise of Unicron. It is a direct sequel to The Last Night, being directed by David. You can check out their channel. I'll link it in the comment section and in the description. And their channel is literally what the movie's called, Transformers: Rise of Unicron. But yeah, I voice Barricade, and I can't say the other characters because story. I don't want to spoil anything, so I'm inclined not to say anything. But that is what I'm gonna mention there. Anyways.
Now, if you ignore the really passive aggressiveness of this comment, which kind of turned me off a bit, he does have a lot of good points. He does bring up a lot of things that were cut, obviously. If it was me writing this comment, I personally would have wrote it a bit more nicer, I guess.
Yeah, but he was just getting sick of people like really writing and just like being aggressive towards him. They were like really aggressive towards him, and he got sick of it. He was like, he clapped it. He was sick of it, and I can understand that because G1 goers, like casual G1 goers, they're pretty cool, and you know I'm friends with G1 people, and they don't like shit on me like in Bavers, but there's like people like on TFW 2005. You do not want to go there if you can't handle very aggressive people. You know, just be inclined for that. Now, the rest of the comment says they wanted to see Unicron with screaming marks, and people still are begging for the uncut version of The Last Night, and had at one point of a time petitioned for it. Michael Bay has refused to release it and know that he's with another studio. Chances are he will never will. So there you go. That's what was removed. And just a friendly reminder, what was removed. We didn't get the Orion Pax story. We would have learned about Optimus. We never got an understanding about Optimus's story in the Bavers. We would have known and learned his history. What he was, what drove him to leave the Autobots, what started the war. And then we have stuff about Megatron gladiator battles. I imagine it's partly, the concept art we've seen and we've shown you, but also pointing out we might have seen some stuff during the Golden Era, like with Orion Pax's backstory. That was probably some backstory of what Megatron was like during his gladiator times. And we didn't get to meet Quintessa with Galvatron. The biggest complaint this movie had, outside of everything, Megatron just randomly popping up. And we would have had an answer. We would have. We would have seen Galvatron meeting Quintessa and him transitioning back to his original form, becoming a dragon and everything.
Yes.
So, Coffee, what you wanted to say, if you want to still go on.
Yes, so I'm going to take the floor a bit. Now, you should also probably take this comment with a pinch of salt. Unless the last Prime managed to find all of these sources that back it up and edit into the video, which if you do, good job. You put a lot of work into editing this video.
Yeah, absolutely.
But seeing how this comment doesn't credit any source, that it's probably best to take this with a pinch of salt. Like, maybe for all we know, he could have just heard this from a friend or something and he's just gossiping it. But hey, if you do manage to find these sources and edit this video, then this will prove this comment completely right. But as of right now, if you aren't able to find these sources, then maybe take this comment with a pinch of salt.
So the last video I'm going to be showing, I'm not allowed to show the name of this person, but I will be showing some help. My friend, a good friend of mine, helped me out, named Aleximus Primus. He will be linked in the description and comment as well. He helped out and got some help for me to get some answers. What happened to the last night and who was behind it. And well, truth to be told, I'll be showing off the image here in a bit, and basically just be ready. So there it is. It's really upsetting to know that basically Paramount was like the last second or minute or so, they were like, we want you to redo this, re-edit it or whatever. Yeah, it's really disheartening what they did
Yes.
to the Bay team, and just generally speaking to the franchise. They destroyed the Bayverse, and to be frank, I think that was always their goal. Like, I feel like it wasn't just Paramount. I feel like it was Hasbro partly, because look at the new Bumblebee movie. It's full on G1 with some Bayverse aspects. Now, I will defend this in spite of Travis Knight, even though I'm not a big fan of that movie. I would say this much. Travis Knight is a very good person. I saw his interviews. Even Bay has said he offered to he could use the models from his franchise. And Travis, he thought it was kind of him, but he wanted to make his own universe. So he wanted to do something on his own take. So Travis Knight and Michael Bay don't hate each other. They talked things through, and they had a very long discussion how they're going to do this. And Travis wanted to bring G1 and Bayverse together. That's why you have Bumblebee in some aspects, very Bayverse, and and he has some G1 aspects for other characters. He was trying
For example, Bumblebee's face. Bumblebee's face is very clearly inspired by Bayverse.
Exactly, and Dropkick and Shadow are very Bayverse, for sure. The point is, what me and probably Coffee is trying to make here is that Bumblebee's movie, it was supposed to unite the fans, not destroy the fandom. And sadly, Travis...
It kind of had the opposite effect.
It had the opposite effect. It destroyed things. It separated people, and it's really tragic what happened. As much I'm not a fan of that movie, like I keep saying, it's the purpose behind it. Travis had the same ideals like Michael Bay. Michael Bay came back after Dark of the Moon because he didn't just do it for the money, but he wanted to do it because of the fans, because he realized how many people still like his franchise. And I'm one of those people still. I love his franchise, and I'm forever gonna miss it. And this is the whole purpose of this video, is to show you guys the real reason, the dark reason, history, what happened to the last night, what really was the downfall of the last night. And this was...
And now, yeah, and while you're still showing the screenshot of the DM, I think this is probably a good time. They probably already read it, but why did they cut it? Well, other than it being too long and them thinking it would scale audience, they also wanted to put this cut footage into Transformers 7, which is, not only are they just cutting out footage and just putting it in a, hopefully, like a next movie, they're kind of holding the footage hostage for the audience, like the fans of this Bayverse. So they're pretty much saying, hey, you want to see the rest of this movie? Well, you better go see this movie, and it better do well, or we won't make a sequel. And the movie was a bit of a box office failure, and now we're not going to get a sequel, and we're probably never going to see the rest of that movie.
Yeah.
If they weren't greedy and they didn't cut it out just to put it in Transformers 7, then we probably would have seen the conclusion, like all that movie could have had to offer. And maybe if that cut footage made it better, maybe it could have performed even better, and maybe we could have gotten a sequel. But we didn't, and now we're not getting that footage.
It's really sad to see what. I mean, Paramount has gotten a lot better, but I'm really disappointed with both companies, especially Hasbro.
Yep.
I'm really disgusted, and see, a lot of you out there don't really understand the real history or really get what really happens in these movies. Before you start accusing or saying all these things about these films, you should do your research first. You shouldn't just go out and say this movie is bad or whatever. That if you're just being a critic, sure. But if you, generally speaking, want to put your opinion very harshly on this franchise, do your research first. I did mine.
Exactly. If you want to critique just the movie itself, like the finished product, go ahead. You can hate on it all you want. But if you want to start trying to convince people of why this movie sucks so much, and not simply just leaving it at a review, then you should do a bit more research. You should try to figure out, okay, why is this movie as bad as it is? I probably upset a lot of people by saying it's bad, but still, in my opinion, it is a bad movie. I personally did not like it. If you liked it, good, go ahead. I'm not trying to stop you whatsoever. I'm not trying to convince you to change your opinion, and you shouldn't be trying to convince me to change my opinion.
Exactly.
Opinions are opinions.
Like, I did like The Last Night. I like the ideas behind it, and even in the cut version. But after finding out what everything I've learned, it's really disgusting, and it's really disheartening. I think the only thing I will credit, I don't think it's even Paramount, I would say credit Bay for this, is how they treated the voice actors. Every person who acted in this franchise were treated with great respect. They weren't mistreated, they weren't degraded or just mistreated, really. And unfortunately, everyone knows about this. What happened in Bumblebee? Everyone has to know about what happened to Peter Cullen mainly, and sadly what happened to Frank Welker. Like, people don't talk about Welker, and as much people like Peter Cullen, I love Peter Cullen, he is an amazing actor, but
he is Optimus. Even after he eventually passes away, Optimus is never going to be the same.
I even say that for Megatron. Like, no one is going to be able to replace Frank Welker. Frank Welker is such a unique actor. It's like talking about Steve Blum passing away. These actors have their own distinctive tone and voice. And Frank Welker, I feel like it's unfair is just, he may have not said much when Peter Cullen was expressing this. It's probably because Cullen is a bit more vocal than Welker. I feel like Welker probably is bothered about, the stuff that's going on. But I feel like he's trying not to stress over it, and he's just trying to be an actor. But there's some actors out there just feel betrayed, or they just feel used. That's the best way to put it.
Now, just in case there are people watching who, for whatever reason, don't know what happened with Bumblebee, the movie Bumblebee, and the voice acting, when it comes to Peter Cullen, he did voice Optimus in that movie. However, instead of they wanted to cheap out. They didn't want to pay Peter Cullen what he's worth. So what they did was they brought in an Optimus Prime impressionist, most likely John Bailey, because he was already in the cast of the movie, playing Shockwave and Soundwave. They probably got John Bailey in to do it, but either way, they got an Optimus Prime impressionist to record all those lines, and then they put all those lines and lip synced Optimus saying those lines, and then they brought in Peter Cullen for just the one day and it basically had him do an impression of the impressionist trying to say the words exactly how he said it. And so instead of like bringing Peter Cullen in and just doing these lines fresh for him, which would took a few days or so, maybe a few weeks, they just had a cheap impressionist do it, and then brought Peter Cullen in for only one day, and just had him do an impression of the guy doing an impression of him.
Now, before he finishes, for anyone that argues in the comments or says anything that if it's about budget or not, I'm a voice actor. Coffee's a voice actor. You don't treat actors like that. You really don't.
No. If I kind of feel like I would be wronged. That's kind of like saying, for example, let's say, for example, you're a video editor, right? And they want you to edit their videos. However, they got someone who's a lot less experienced than you to edit a video, and then they only bring you in for one day and say, hey, can you edit the video exactly like this guy did? You're gonna just feel like, oh, why am I here then? What's the point of you just bringing me in if you don't want to use me the right way?
So the point of why we bring this up is we're trying to show you guys how the companies are now, especially Hasbro. Hasbro is mistreating their original and their new and just becoming really, really wrong towards the people they're working with. Now,
Yes.
I would say it's more, was it Netflix's fault or the Rooster's fault in Siege?
It will not be Netflix's fault. They're simply just paying Hasbro to put this series on that channel. They don't really have anything to do with the production.
Well, it's more.
Like,
It's more.
Netflix didn't even know when it was releasing.
Yeah, it was more so. What I'm talking about is there was something that happened with one of the actresses who played Alita 1 and one of the voice directors. I don't know if it was with Rooster, Hasbro, or even Netflix. It's unknown, at least to my knowledge. If anyone knows, leave a comment, or if Coffee even know, bring it up. But
All I know is that it was not Netflix. Netflix had nothing to do with the production or the behind the scenes. It was either Hasbro or Rooster Teeth. Most likely Rooster Teeth.
the point we're trying to get at is they made that actress cry, and she walked out of the studio that day.
So basically, for more context on the situation, you may notice, if you have watched Earthrise and Siege and whatnot, you probably noticed that the voice acting could get rather bland. Like, they're all just talking in one serious, monotone voice. They're not really showing many different emotions throughout the performance.
Exactly.
Now, it's not just, it wasn't bad voice acting. It was bad voice direction. The director of the voice acting exclusively wanted them to talk serious and deep and monotone. And they were very strict about it. If you really try to change up your performance a bit, they would basically tell you to stop and go back to monotone. They were very strict. And we don't know how strict, but apparently very strict, as the strictness, the voice directors basically being so strict one day, I guess, that they caused the voice actors for Alita 1 to walk out of the recording booth crying. I don't think it needs to be said, but like, if you cause one of your paying talents to break down and cry, you should be fired. You fucked up.
Absolutely. So the whole point of this conversation here about the treatment of the VAs, the voice actors, is just to give you an understanding what it's like now, even like for the newer stuff with Transformers. Like, Transformers is in a very dark place right now. It is.
Yes.
Bumblebee didn't revive Transformers. It divided it. Travis did try his best. Now, I'll never fault Travis. He's a very good man and he means well for his aspects of direction.
Yeah, I agree. He's a fan of the franchise. He grew up watching the cartoon.
However, we don't blame the directors. We don't blame the team. The ones that are, that made the movie happen is the ones we blame. Like Hasbro, I'd imagine, is a lot more in control on Bumblebee. And
yeah, they had a lot more control. Like, for example, have you noticed that the Allspark logo that appeared at the beginning of Bumblebee? It's not just like a new company. That is Hasbro's media company. They renamed Hasbro renamed their media company to Allspark.
Allspark
So for
Productions. Yeah.
Allspark Productions, yes. So it wasn't just like a random company that was like newly made. That was in fact Hasbro, which means Hasbro did in fact have a lot more to do with this production of the Bumblebee movie than the Bayverse.
Now, people's arguments I've seen when they talk about Bumblebee, saying if it's bad, people fault Bay because he was one of the producers. And I think that's very scummy to really.
I think so too. In my opinion, the producers don't really have that much of a part to play in a movie.
No.
Producers basically just look at the movie and say, yeah, that's good, go ahead. When it comes to a movie being bad, it's not the producer's fault. You usually blame the writers or the directors.
Absolutely.
Producers have a pretty easy job in terms where they don't have to do nearly as much work as the director or writers.
Well, this is pretty much it. I hope you guys got enough information about this. This had to be said. This had to be revealed because no one really understood anything about the Bayverse franchise, nor really understand what happened to the last night. So I hope you guys stayed enough to watch this and get a true understanding what really happened behind the scenes. So regardless of all that, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Share it if you can, like and subscribe, and well, I'll see you guys next time. Stay safe. Peace out.
Adios.
For my world to live, yours must die.